Hey guys, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. I am your host, Devon Harris. And yes, you know what we do here is that we share ideas and insights that are going to inspire you, that are going to challenge you and encourage you to live your absolute best life. So, are you interested in that, even remotely? Then you're in the right place, my man. So, welcome again to Keep On Pushing TV. I have had the good fortune of meeting some really cool people over the years, and our guest today definitely ranks among them. In fact, I would say that she's one of my favorite superstars. You know, she is regarded as the best speed skater of her era, if not of all time. She has won 11 World Cup titles. She's only the third winter athlete to ever receive the Sullivan Award, and the first female athlete actually to receive the Oscar Matheson Award. She's a four-time Olympian, starting out in 1984 in Sarajevo, competing all the way up to Lillehammer in 1994. And during those four Olympic campaigns, she walked away with 6 medals, 5 golds and a bronze, just because, right? Since, of course, she has been inducted into numerous Hall of Fames, the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame, Chicagoland Sports Hall of Fame, Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame. And since her time on the ice, she has worked as a company spokesperson, a motivational keynote speaker, been very involved at various levels in speed skating. And of course, she's a wife and a mother. Her fans, some of her fans know her as Bonnie Blair. I call her Bonnie Blair, and it is such an honor to be able to welcome Bonnie to Keep On Pushing. Bonnie, good to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Devon. Nice to be here. Thanks for that nice introduction.
Oh, well, and I'm only telling the truth, and that's only part of it, actually. But it's great to have you. The last time I saw you was many years ago in Sochi. How have you been since? What have you been up to?
Yeah, life is good. As you were going through talking about my accolades or whatever, and I was like, at the very end, I'm gonna like yell in there, and I'm a mom. You got that one.
No.
I think that's the biggest cap that I wear, and obviously I'm very appreciative of the things that came before me and working hard to get there or whatever. But, I think these days I'm most proud of being a mom and hoping to steer my kids in the right direction. And just like about a month ago, we're kind of winding down both my son and my daughter's athletic seasons. Mm-hmm. And it was, I just kind of sat back and I'm like, I'm just in a really good place. My kids are doing well. They're thriving. They're excited for what they're doing. And I'm along for the ride and watching. And it's just been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, because I think it's really important. We work hard to achieve, but when we become parents, that really becomes our focus. I so feel you on that, Bonnie. Awesome.
Well, and I think, not to interrupt you, but I also think then now I know more of what my parents went through.
I was actually thinking that as you were speaking.
It really does kind of come full circle, and and maybe I understand it to another degree, having been there, done that.
Yeah.
That my parents didn't have that ability. But just, the sitting in the stands and, you've got no control and,
mm-hmm.
You want to help things along, but you can't. So, I think that part of it, I definitely have a better grasp for as well.
I think that's a parent instinct as well, to always want to help in every which way that we can. But sometimes we just have to let them fly. And I agree, as I think about my own kids and as they are getting older and going off to find their way. And I think back to when I was that age and felt I was all grown and knew it all and wondered why my parents were worried about me. I have to take solace in that to go, well,
right.
I was there once and it's their turn now.
Yeah. And
So
once you're a parent, you're always a parent. So I think you're going to worry no matter what the age
yes,
is, right?
yes, that's true. That's the circle of life. So you're born here in New York, where I am, but then you
Yeah,
moved to Champaign, Illinois, as a toddler. You're the youngest of six,
correct. Yeah.
and
By a long
everybody
ways.
skated, huh?
By a long ways. I probably really shouldn't be here, but I may be one of those oops babies.
Oh, well, sometimes the surprises are the best ones, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, and I think it definitely helped keep my parents young because they had to run around after this kid that they thought they were long done with having kids.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's the gap between yourself and number five?
8 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
And
probably were.
and
Oops,
then
I
there
did it
was
again.
then there was 22 between me and the oldest. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
my two probably almost third even oldest siblings could have been my parents. So
yeah,
I grew up with a lot of parents too. So
yeah,
really probably more than just one
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
one set, I guess I should say.
Absolutely. So, everybody skated, and so they kind of threw in on skates at 2 years old.
Yeah, I guess the story goes that they didn't even have skates. Well, probably even earlier than that, but skates small enough to fit me. So they said they just left my shoes on and put the skates on over them.
Right.
So that's kind of what the story goes. And I my recollection is just remembering loving to skate,
Mm-hmm.
loving to go to the rink, loving to go to the competitions. I don't remember learning. One of my biggest memories that I kind of have is uh, growing up more so in Illinois. I lived in New York for like 3 months before my dad got transferred. And in Illinois, when we skated against other teams in Illinois, you always had a constant number on your back,
Mm-hmm.
so as you went over the finish line, the judges that were on the side, which my mom, periodically filled in on. My dad was always the timer on the finish line, but our numbers on our back would help those to say who got first, second, third.
Right. Yeah.
Nowadays it's done electronically or whatever,
Yeah.
but my number on my back growing up was always 5. So when I turned 5 and the number on my back was 5, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So obviously that was my lucky number. And then I wound up winning 5 gold medals. So
There you
there's
go.
definitely something to all that. But my earliest memory is really being 5. And, my number on my back is 5 and I'm 5, but I don't remember learning. I just remember really, the love of going to the rink and being
Mhm.
excited to, go to the practices. And when the season would ramp up again, that's my earliest recollection.
Yeah. So it seems that your dad especially, was really involved with you and your siblings skating. I read or watched a video where, he was at a competition when you were being born.
Yeah, well, because he was with the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
Kind of back then, that parents really weren't, or your spouse or whatever really wasn't allowed in the delivery room
Yeah.
anyway. And I
Hmm.
guess he figured, well, she's already been down this road 5 other times.
He knows
I
what to
think
do.
she's got it figured out, right? So yeah, that's how they knew. My brothers and sisters knew whether I was a boy or a girl. They announced it over the loudspeaker at the ice.
Oh, that they had a sister.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool. And so you started racing early, I think at 4, but you
Or
didn't win your
yeah.
first. Success didn't come immediately for you. You didn't win your first event until you were 7.
Yeah, well, and if that's the case, I'm guessing your information is better than mine. I don't know. I do know, like growing up, and when I talk about, those competitions that we had in Illinois, and then sometimes it would go to other states, you're always like in a 2-year age bracket. So, either one year you're going to be younger and the
Hmm.
other year you're going to be older. And, I definitely had success along the way through those early years, and winning competitions. And we had a basement full of trophies, and
Yeah.
I was excited when I got to go add my trophies to the rest of my siblings,
Right.
area. And but there was also a point in time in there, probably 12 or 13, when your body's growing and changing, and my legs weren't catching up with the rest of me. And so
Hmm.
I really had, I guess I would call it a clumsy season. And I remember being so disheartened with the lack of success that I was having, knowing what I had had before.
Hmm.
And I remember people coming up to me and going, you're just growing, and your legs will catch up to you, and be patient. And and I remember my mom saying, well, do you want to stop? And it was kind of like, well, no, I don't want to stop, but I don't like this getting beat stuff.
Right.
And I'm glad that I'm obviously glad that I stuck with it. But
Hmm.
I think I listened to those other adults around me that said, your body's changing, you're going to catch up with it, and then you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I was patient enough to wait and go, okay, I'm going to keep doing this thing called speed skating.
And that's I think about that, and two things. The world gets to know the great Bonnie Blair now, but if you had a different mindset, if you had different people in your life, perhaps you would not have persevered through those rough years when you weren't
Yeah,
winning, and we
yeah,
never would have
correct.
seen your greatness.
Yeah, that's a for sure fact. But there's definitely competition in the Blair blood,
Yeah.
because even my sister Mary, like, she like, you get in a car, click. She wants to get her, seatbelt clicked before everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna play cards until she wins. So, at midnight you let her win so you could go to bed. So I think there were just you played games in the car, and there was, and I wouldn't say it was a bad sense. It was a
Mhm.
fun sense of competition.
Yeah.
How can we make something competitive out of getting in a car? Click,
There you
shotgun.
go.
Who gets shotgun? Whoever yelled it first, like
Yeah.
all those different things. And those things bring a great smile to my face, because my sister Mary has passed. But I think there was a lot of stuff instilled in us, to be competitive, but not take it like overboard,
Right.
um, and and it drive you insane. It was a fun competitiveness that we had amongst our family, that then carries on over into your athletic endeavors,
Hmm.
but also just in everyday life of wanting to try to be successful.
And be the
And
best.
yeah.
And you actually had good role models as well, because was it four of your siblings went on to become national champions?
Yeah, my oldest brother was really away at prep school kind of when they started speed skating, so he didn't have that opportunity. But
Hmm.
all the other ones were either national or North American champions. So, they paved the way. And but when they got to the point where they needed to go on to college, or what, they did that.
Yeah.
And I'm that one that I kind of kept what ifing myself. And maybe there was, I guess I wish I could go back and ask my parents of why they didn't force that part on me to go to
Hmm.
college.
Right.
I'm
Mhm.
really only thinking of this as we speak right now.
I got you.
Like,
Yeah.
were there so many people that maybe came up to them and said, she's got potential, let her keep skating, don't, there's always school to be had. I don't know the answer to that. But I'm glad they didn't force that. You got to, okay,
Go to
now
college.
you're done with high school, you got to go to college, and this, like this is what you have to do. And
Hmm.
and I'm lucky that they didn't force that subject, but you definitely have me questioning. I might have to go back and ask my older sisters if they know the answer to that question.
Well, I'm glad I was able to help with that. So, so I mentioned two things. One was the influence of others on you. And two, though, you mentioned how as a teenager, your body started changing. And I think, and you struggled through that. Can you speak to that a little bit, Bonnie? Because there's so many young girls, especially, whether they're athletes or not, who struggle with body image issues, and some of them are ashamed for it.
Yeah, and I guess it wasn't necessarily, any body issues. To me, it was, I'd be skating well and I'd fall. And I think it was like I referenced it earlier, it was a clumsy stage.
Mm-hmm.
It was really that it was kind of like, why aren't my legs doing what my mind wants to do?
Right.
There wasn't that connectivity, I guess. And it was like, I remember, and it happened in my hometown. It was one of the last competitions before nationals. And it came down to the very last race. And as the state of Illinois, we would send a certain amount of girls or in that age group to nationals. And one or the two of the races before I had fallen. And like, it literally came down to the very last race of whether I was going to have enough points to put me in that category to let me go to nationals. And, and luckily I didn't fall that race. I think I won it. But, it was one of those things where it came down to the last race of the regular season before, I realized I was going to be able to go to nationals. And, it was really frustrating. And, but like I said, I just kind of feel like, I was patient with it. I had good people around me encouraging me, saying, just wait. And that was what helped me along the way to get me through that rough stage. And that's not to say I didn't have other rough stages, throughout my career. There were definitely challenges. One season in particular, like the whole season was, I'm like, once again, what's to do with my legs? Why aren't they going where my head is? And, and I think there was a little bit of overtraining and some different things that went on that my body didn't like. And it was like, it was telling me. So, I think there's, when things aren't going the way you want them to, I think a couple of things. Number one, take a step back, look at the big picture. What's going on here? Why are maybe some of these happening? And I think the other thing of what I would try to do is focus on the things that actually are going right. So, that one season in 93 when the clock wasn't reading numbers I wanted it to, I would try to focus on the things that were going correct, and hopefully gradually some of those things that I was struggling with that, part of my technique here or there, wherever wasn't going the way I wanted it to, would gradually get better. So I think, sometimes if you get so caught up on the things that aren't going right, then they tend to snowball on you and run out of control. And then you're really in trouble. But, just trying to focus on those good positive things and take those in. And like I said, take a step back, analyze what's going on, try to figure out the things of maybe why it's not going the way you want to, and gradually try to change those to try to get things back on top again.
That's great advice, Bonnie. I think that applies to every single area of our lives for sure. So tell me, I know you did a number of other sports when you were growing up. What was it about speed skating that just caused you to gravitate to it?
Yeah, I played softball growing up. I ran track in high school. There was some soccer, although soccer isn't what it was today. And I wound up being on like a co-ed team where I was the only co. but you know, there, I guess there probably weren't as many opportunities, and especially in my sister's era, for athleticism.
Right.
So it was nice to be in something that, you know, had, you know, dimension to it, where, you know, yeah, there were practices, there were local competitions, there were statewide, it went national. And like I said, my siblings were in it before me. So, you know, kind of growing up, I didn't know anything different.
Right.
But yes, I tried the other things, but you know, when it came time for speed skating season, boy, I was ready. Like, when do we start? Like, when's it coming? I want to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think maybe too, you know, competing within yourself, and to a certain, you know, short track maybe is a little bit different because I did race short track. But for the most part, you have the control. So, you know, in a team sport, you necessarily don't have that control.
Right.
So I guess maybe that was one of the things maybe that I grabbed onto, because I did do something, you know, like playing the softball or the soccer that were more team orientated, but maybe it was deep down inside, I liked having that control,
Right.
where I'm the one, I'm the either I'm going to make my destination good or I'm not.
Yeah.
It's all up to me. And maybe coaches come into play there, yes, but ultimately it's up to me.
Yeah.
And especially having a clock that you race against, that doesn't lie. So it's not judgmental. You know, my daughter was in gymnastics and I'm sitting in the stands and I'm like, I don't get this sport. Like,
right.
what did they see that I didn't see, and vice versa.
Right.
You know, so I was glad to have the clock at the end of the straightaway that it doesn't lie.
It tells you what you did.
It tells me, either I'm good or I'm not, and then it's back up to me again.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that your parents, you know, obviously did not push you towards college, perhaps as they did with their siblings. When did the Olympics come on your radar?
I specifically remember being in my TV room watching Eric Heiden, and you know, Miracle on Ice. So the 80 games is really what, you know, was kind of like, oh, you know, that's kind of cool. But you know, back then I didn't skate. Well, I take that back. I probably knew a little bit about the Olympics prior to, but prior to the 1980 Olympic trials, I had never skated what we called back then Olympic style skating. I had always done what we referred to as short track. We called it indoor, and then that was called, you know, Olympic style. And then there was outdoor, which is like short track on the track that I'm on, but you know, you have like a group of skaters racing together. So now it's differentiated short track, long track. You could say I was probably more of a short track, a pack style racer. And the weekend before the 1980 Olympic trials, somebody's like, well, why don't you try this? And I'm like, well, I've never done that before. And they, you know, they wore the outfits with the hoods, and, you know, we just wore tights and like a jersey. And somebody lent me their racing suit or whatever. And there was a qualifying time in order to be able to just skate in the Olympic trials. And I knew what that was in my mind. And I was the very last pair. My pair didn't show up for some odd reason. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm here all by myself. You know, am I going to remember to switch lanes on the backstretch? You know, all these different things are going through my head. But as I came around with about 50 meters to go, I knew that time in my head of what I had to beat. And the clock at the end of the straightaway, I actually looked up and saw it. And I kind of just put my head down and I barreled down, you know, and like, boom, I'm like, I get to skate in the Olympic trials. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
How
this is
old
pretty
were you
cool,
then?
you know? So, so then I went back the next weekend and raced in Olympic trials. And actually coincidentally got paired with Leopoldus Mueller, who went on to win a silver medal in Lake Placid.
Mm-hmm.
And my first 100 meters was so fast that it freaked her out a little bit, made her go faster, and she set a
Right.
track record.
Wow.
And she came up to me afterwards and said, "You're the reason I skated a track record." And I was kind of like, what? You know, and then she goes on and wins a silver medal. So that was kind of my first instance of getting into that. And it was all because some of my other, you know, pack style friends were like, why don't you try this?
Oh. So how old were you then, Bonnie?
And I was, I think, like 16, right around in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you made the U.S. team, you know, as a teenager while you're still in high school. So how did you balance, you know, training and focusing on your races and so on with high school studies?
Yeah, my you know, at the time and being a teenager, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier about, you know, your parents and, you know, they think they know it all and this and that. And would have been my senior year, I guess it was. A lot of the other skaters were going over to Europe to get on ice early, which was typically what they did every year. Now we have the indoor facilities. You don't have to do that. But before that, there was one track in Germany that always opened up early. And so everybody else was doing it. So I remember in the summer, I was at a training camp at the training center in Colorado Springs. And, you know, I told my coaches, I'm like, yeah, I asked my parents. They said no. But I'm like, maybe if you talk to them. So, you know, the coach gets on the phone and talks to my parents. And, you know, they're like, no, she needs to finish high school. She needs to be here. She needs to finish high school, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I look back at that time, and at the time I was like, well, you know, everybody else is doing it. You know, you get that thing, and why can't I? But, you know, I think that was probably one of the best things my parents ever did for me. Because I definitely, over the course of my skating career, thereafter, watching kids that grew up with my kids and, you know, trying to get them on the fast track somewhere, they burn out. They're done. They're done already. They're not still in it. And so by my parents kind of holding me back, making sure I finished high school before I started, traveling and doing all that, they really kind of, you know, kept me a little bit more grounded, but made sure I stayed on that right path.
Right.
And because of that, years later, I still had that desire and that want to be there. So I didn't have too much too soon that took me out of it at an earlier age
Burn
than
you
I
out too soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1980s, kind of when the Olympics, certainly in terms of skating, came on your radar. When did you go, this could be a goal of mine to compete?
Yeah, I think, you know, then the 84 games, I made that team.
Yeah.
You know, and I think kind of at that 80 Olympic trials, I was like, oh, well, maybe I could make I wound up being 8th that year at our Olympic trials, and they took 5. So I'm like, you know, with doing 3 races, you know, so, you know, that was my like, oh, well, maybe I could go to the Olympics. That'd be kind of cool. Never had been on my radar before that weekend. You know, like I skated, this was fun, I enjoy this, but never like, oh God, I could go to.
But your dad kind of felt that you could go to the Olympics, though.
But I'm sorry.
Your dad,
my dad, and I think he's the one. You know, he was kind of the one that also, you know, it was right about that time or right after my high school was just a couple blocks from where my dad worked. So a couple of times I'd go over there and get a ride home or, whatever. And I remember one time him introducing me to a new coworker of his. And my dad was a man of very few words, like not like me. We could drive up and back to Chicago and he could maybe say like 3 sentences. So, he was kind of one of these guys though, that when he said something, he meant it.
Yeah.
When he said something, you heard it. And so, he's like, oh, this is a new coworker of mine. And he's like, yeah, this is my daughter, Bonnie, and she's going to be in the Olympics. And I was kind of like, what in the world's he talking about?
Yeah.
So I'm, it kind of went in one ear and out the other, because I'm like, oh, it's like a parent trying to embarrass you, which is also still kind of weird too, because like I said, him being a man of very few words, like he wasn't that type of a parent to do that.
Right.
So, obviously, this kind of goes back to maybe what we were talking about earlier. Obviously, either he saw something, somebody else saw something, they told him, whatever that was, but he really believed I was going to go to the Olympics.
Right.
And I skated pack style. I didn't do what they did in the Olympics. So what's he talking about? As 80 came around and I skated well in those Olympic trials, well, maybe I could go to the Olympics.
Right.
And then I get to 84 and I place 8th. And now the wheels are churning a little bit more. Like I'm like 8th in the world. Like, like
there you go. Like, at 19.
Like, I felt like I won. Like I'm like, hey, this is great, So, then like 84 came along. I was 8th. Then I started to become, I was dedicated to the sport, in 84. But after that, I took that to anher level. I did what I needed to do.
Into that, Bonnie,
before
we jump into that, let me ask you this quick. So your godmother, Kathy Priestner, when did she become your coach? And she herself was an accomplished skater, silver medalist in 76. Yes. So you just had skating royalty around you all the way, didn't you?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. Kathy and her husband at that time, he had a job at the University of Illinois. So, Kathy knew there was a speed skating club there. So she's like, maybe I could go and help out at this club. And I think her husband was busy working and she had nothing to, like, what am I going to do? Canadian, I'm here in America. Like, what can I do? And so she came, to one of our practices, and I can't remember exactly how it all came together, but she came and started helping out with our club. And then that's when I was kind of on my upswing. So she was with me. She was one of those people that was with me that first Olympic style skating that I skated, and wound up being able to qualify for Olympic trials. And so then after that, then we started, I started going to the rink before school, a couple of days a week. And, they said I broke in. No, I had my own key. They would Zamboni the ice the night before.
Right.
I knew where to turn the lights on. I'd go in, I'd turn the lights on. We do, a quick workout. And then by then the workers were coming in by the time I was done and I was out of there. And, so she really also kind of came into my life at a really good time, because she was the one that when I was there, like, when I'm like, oh God, I'm going to forget to cross over on the backstretch. And she's like, no, you won't. And I'll be on the backstretch. I'll help to remind you or what, so, and she gave me little, how do you warm up for this? Like, all the little tricks and tools that you need to get ready for a race like that, which was, yes, you're still speed skating, but it was different when you do it pack style versus when you do it on your own.
So pack style, which we now call short track. You continued racing in that discipline and even became the world champion in 86, was
In
it?
1986. Yeah,
Yeah.
you did your homework.
Well, that's what we
Or you
both
got
started
good
to
notes
do.
in front of you.
Yeah. So when did short track become an Olympic sport?
So 1988, it became a demonstration sport.
Ah.
And so when I won in 86, um, 86, I skated really well at the world championships for long track.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was able to skate the short track that year, and then went on to win the world championships. And I don't know if by then they had decided it would be a demonstration sport or not, but I don't think it had until maybe the next year. And after I won in 86, I was kind of like, okay, I won this, but I want to go to the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to focus and concentrate on that. So after I won in 86, I'm like, okay, I'm done with short track. I'm just going to focus on the long track. And because it wasn't in the games.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, but obviously it makes sense. If you want to compete in the Olympics and short track isn't an Olympic sport, then long track it is then.
Right, yeah.
So you go to Sarajevo, you finish 8th, you feel like you've won 10 gold medals because it was such an amazing experience and result based on where you were. But then you kind of took it to another level, heading to Calgary. What did you think? What in your mind caused that shift, and what are some of the things that you did in order to raise your game?
Yeah, I think, and I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier. I just kind of took the training to like another level,
Mm-hmm.
and I think yes. There was 84. I graduated high school in 82. And so I probably wasn't quite as dedicated to the sport. I was a little bit, but not, I wasn't doing it like, 24/7.
Right.
My friends want to go to a movie. Maybe I'll do that workout later, and I go
Mm-hmm.
to a movie with them, or, whatever. So I wasn't as dedicated as I could be.
Mm-hmm.
And after 88 and being at the Olympics and having my eyes wide open, and, I thought if I got anywhere near 10th, that would be great.
Yeah.
So place 8th, that was like, oh my God. And so then, that was all I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was enough to make me, go, okay, like, what do I do? Like,
yeah.
Where do we go from here? Like, I'm not going to the movie anymore, or I'm going to go when I'm done with my workout.
Right.
That's more of what I did. I started living more where my coaches lived, because, kind of really prior to that, if you didn't live where your coach lived, they'd send you a training program in the mail.
Yeah.
And so it's really up to you to do it.
Yeah.
You're really on your own for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Until, there were times where you would be together as training camps or whatever, but it wasn't in like a year-round situation.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I started making some of those moves and living in different areas where I'd be around other athletes. So I was not only just doing the workouts, but I think getting pushed and kind of competing within those workouts at the same time.
As well. So, what you're saying to me is that, whether you want to compete in the Olympics as a skater, or you want to be, I don't know, a top salesperson or a top student, you have to raise your level of commitment, because when you do it, your actions change as well.
Oh, for sure.
Very different results.
Yeah, my one coach at one point said, you finally have become a student of the sport.
Right.
And I'm like, well, exactly what do you mean by that? And he's like, you want to get good grades, you got to study.
Yeah.
You want to get good results out on the ice, you got to put the work in. Yeah. So, like I said, where I was kind of more of a fun student, then right. I got to be the dedicated.
Then you got serious, student. And they became a serious student. So you're heading off to Calgary. the Olympics before, Sarajevo 84, the U.S. hadn't won a medal. You finished 8th and you were on top of the world. But now you're having some success and you are seen as a medal contender.
Correct.
What was that? Did you feel pressure? Did you feel the pressure of the need to bring home a medal for the U.S. and the pressure that of the expectations that you were now a contender, you could actually take home a medal?
Yeah, there were different things that kind of went on that winter leading up to 88. And, yeah, I knew that I was a medal contender.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had set the world record before that, but then
Mm-hmm.
an East German had reset it after that.
Christina Rothenberger.
Yeah. So, I knew a medal was in my grasp, and not only one, but two. I knew I could be competitive in the 1,000 as well. Competitive for third spot in the 1,000. Let's clarify.
Yeah.
But going into that, it was, oh my God, was it like a learning experience? Because now all of a sudden we're like a few months away from the Olympics, and Sports Illustrated is here, and Time Magazine and Life Magazine, and all these like news venues are coming and want to do interviews and want to take pictures. And when they say one more lap on a 400-meter track after I've already been training,
yes,
was like at one point, and it was a guy from Sports Illustrated had come, and part of it had been, I think I had already been interviewed 3 times by 3 different people from Sports Illustrated, and people had come to take my picture almost the exact same amount of time, and I like had it up to here,
right,
and it was a hard training block, and I was like exhausted, and I kind of like blew up at the guy.
yeah,
And I did go back and I apologized. And first of all, that's not my personality.
right.
But I mean, this is a hard training block, and this is stuff I've never done before. Like, what, like, where were these people last year for the World Championships?
It's very distracting.
They didn't care about the World Championships from the year before, but it's the Olympic Games. So we're typically a sport that's looked at every 4 years, and we're expected to perform. And, I know that nobody had done it in 84, and now you've got myself, Dan Jansen, Nick Tomitz had been pretty successful, Eric Flame, there were a handful of us, but it was exhausting.
Yeah.
But I can't remember exactly who helped me kind of figure it out, but I'm like, okay, rules. Like, I'm only going to take pictures in my racing suits on Thursdays, because that's when I'm in my racing suit. You want that? Fine. I'll give you starts or positions, but I'm not, you can get whatever you want during practice, but I'm not going to keep doing like laps afterwards.
Yeah.
And I kind of made my coach be the bad guy. He was I'm like, we're implementing this, and this is what's going to happen. And if we're going to try to do interviews, let's knock them all out on a Monday where we don't have as hard of a training schedule. I really kind of had to teach myself in a lot of that, which all that hubbub leading up to the Olympics. So yes, there was the pressure of that. However, I didn't take that pressure as, if I don't win, you're going to disappoint all the Americans. Like, to me, it was like, I'm still going to go out and do what I need to do. And because it's for me first. If I can't satisfy myself first, I can't satisfy my family, my sport, and then what's the rest of America, right? So I have to take care of me first. And if I go out and I skate a great race and it's not medal worthy, then like at the 1500 in Calgary, I was 4th. Like, I was ecstatic. Like, that was like that, that was a really good race for me. but the Americans look at it as you're fourth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he didn't get
And,
a medal.
important lesson there, Kathy, because I think, all of us, we struggle with living up to the success, as is defined by the world, by others. And you're right. A fourth place, people see that as a failure, but I know that was your best performance in the 1500 ever at that time. And so that was tremendous success for you. People looking on will go, no, that was a failure. She didn't win a medal.
That was fourth.
Yeah.
You might as well have been last.
And it's really important that our listeners or viewers walk away from this recognizing that, you know what, as you say, you have to take care of you first.
Yeah.
You have to define success for yourself and then strive to achieve that. So you're at the race, and
then, I was going to say, part of 88 too is then the whole tragedy of Dan Jansen losing his sister.
I remember that.
So
wow.
He raced earlier in the Olympics, and I raced later.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something that really affected our whole team, because even though we're an individual sport and there's boys and there's girls, we're a team and we train together. Like DJ's like my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so when something like that happens to one of your closest teammates, you feel that.
Yeah.
And, still it wasn't like, oh, I had to win for I had to win for DJ because he fell on both his races. Like,
right.
I didn't feel that either. Like, to me, like going to the starting line, once I got to do it for me first.
Mm-hmm.
But once I did that and I crossed the finish line and I set a world record, and there were so many people that then I'm like, I did it for me first,
but also
there's
for them.
So many people that you're like, oh my God, like I can kind of share this with DJ.
Yeah.
And I know that it wasn't his medal, but I know that we're close enough that to be able to share in somebody's success is pretty special.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he feels that.
I was about to say, I've seen interviews with him where he spoke about how special it was for you that ranks up there with his Olympic in terms of his Olympic memory. You winning that medal.
Yeah.
So you did it for you.
And now we go back to Kathy, who was in Champaign, who was my coach.
Yeah.
Now she's running the rink in Calgary. So she was one of the first people I'm still on the ice on the backstretch hugging her. I mean, she wasn't on the ice. She was like on the pads, on the backside. Like it comes full circle, right?
Yeah,
there were so many people that were part of it. But if I'm going to the starting line and I'm thinking of DJ and him losing his sister, or I'm thinking of, my dad at that point was battling cancer. And finished radiation. Or am I thinking of the coaches I had before that? I'm going to the starting line for the wrong reason.
Yeah,
I need to go to the starting line for me, and I'm pretty good, like tunnel vision. Like I don't remember a lot of even what's going on. My coach came up to me on the backstretch prior to going to the starting line. And Krista Rothenberger had just set the world record 2 pairs before me.
Yes.
So in order for me to win,
you have to
need to go faster than I've ever gone. And I need to set a world record, right?
And this is a girl who had taken your world record away.
Yeah. So, but I knew in my mind what I had done the week before in training was fast enough to beat that time. And he's like got the piece of paper and he's calculating. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I know. And I skated away from him because I could tell he was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need that. Like, get away from me. Let me just get in my own zone. Like, I'm good. I got this. I mean, not that, yes, I have this, but I felt confident enough in what I was doing that his nervousness was going to get me nervous, and that's not what I wanted.
Right, exactly.
So, and it's not like I got there going, I got this, because I know I still needed to do it, but I had the confidence in myself that if I skated the way I knew I could skate, I could win.
Right. And so you left those blocks like a bullet, the 200th of a second ahead of Christina, and that was in the end
That's what it
the
was.
race.
And she always beat me down the 100.
Yeah.
So I beat her down the 100.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you leave Calgary on a high, with 2 medals, a gold and a bronze. And your dad, who was, as you just mentioned, was just got through his chemotherapy, his radiation for his cancer diagnosis, saw you, the man who believed from the beginning that you could become an Olympic champion.
And it was probably like, like 2 hours or thereabout. There's a medal ceremony, there's interviews, there's drug testing, there's all this going on, that I actually got to be face to face with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And the smile on my dad's face, it was priceless. Just, He didn't need to say anything. I'm sure he probably did, but his smile said it all.
Yeah. And then you kind of lost him after that, the year after.
So yeah, we lost him of all days, Christmas Day in 1989. So
that's my birthday too.
Ah, there you go.
That's something I read that. I'm like, wow, he passed away on my birthday. Yeah. So I'm sure. And so how did that impact your skating afterwards?
I don't think a ton. As far as what I would do like on a daily basis, mm-hmm. or whatever. But when I got to Albertville and I won that first race, the 500, I dedicated that medal in his memory, because it was that guy that said that one sentence that said, my daughter's going to be in the Olympics and she's going to win a medal.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did he know that? What being in the Olympics is one thing. Winning a medal is a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, he's that guy that put that seed in my head that, of the guy that hardly said anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That was just special for me to be able to honor his memory and, the seed that he planted in me.
So you just mentioned that you repeated in Albertville, which was unprecedented, and then you repeated again in Lillehammer, the only person to have done that.
Well, I was also lucky enough to get that 2-year little jump too.
Hey,
so that helped.
Like I said, it's always better to be lucky than great, right?
Right, exactly. However, the year after that, I won the worlds and set another world record. So that would have been 95. So it would have only been 1 year away from 96. I could have done it again.
You could have done it. So look, you have been you were on top of your sport for many years, Bonnie. And when I was growing up in high school, my idol was Sebastian Coe, 800-meter runner. I'm Jamaican, but that's what I ran. Because in Jamaica, everybody sprints fast except me, and you have to win something. And I remember reading a book where he said, it's really hard to get to the top. It's twice as hard to stay there. So you're at the top for a really long time. How were you able to motivate yourself and challenge yourself to remain at the top?
Well, and I think I definitely had peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
I just peaked at the Olympic Games, which was good. And not to say I didn't peak at other times, but
right.
I was able to, have some of those really great seasons then. One of my best seasons ever was 95, the year after the Olympic Games. But I think, and this is one thing that we really instill in our kids to this day is you've got to have breaks. So, where I see some, kids that have grown up with my kids, they might be in one sport or they might be in two, but they go from one season to the next, and there's never time
Rest
off.
time. Mm-hmm.
You have to have time off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that we were always pretty good about doing, is taking some time away after the season, a good like 6 to 8 weeks where you're not thinking skating, you're not doing skating training. For a while there, you just don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe as you kind of get closer to that time, you're going to start training, do something that's fun, whether it's, play tennis, go for a hike, or, do something that's not related to
right.
what you wouldn't call training, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do active. And then, so after the 88 games, also, I went back to school and did some schooling in Butte, Montana. So that year I only really probably took part in 3 international competitions. But when I did that, oh my God, I was like, yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
So having that one season kind of away, but I only had like a couple of competitions to really be there and be with it. That led me to believe that, or led me to know that I didn't want to take another, because I was still training, but I probably wasn't training as hard as I could have.
Right.
So I had kind of taken this a little bit of a step back because I was going to school. So,
right.
I wanted school to be my forefront, but keep the training aspect there. And I think over the course of the years when you're training, a lot of stuff can kind of carry over. So I think it could carry over 1 year. Had I done it 2 years, I don't think I would have seen the results that I did in those 3 competitions that I was in.
Yeah.
So that was, there were times where things were a little cyclical for me, but then I knew I wanted it. And I knew that I didn't want to take another year like that. So then the other thing, I think, after the 92, I realized that some people do take a year like that after the Olympics. But when they do that, sometimes it's like, and they might go totally away. I didn't go totally away.
Right.
They really take a year off, and they can never come back to, I very seldom have I seen it.
Right.
And they come back and been the athlete that they were. And the other thing that I kind of think of is sometimes if other people do that and you train really hard that year after, you can leap over.
Leap way ahead of them. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about limitations for a bit, Bonnie, because you're 5'5"-ish, somewhere 125, 130. Much smaller than the average skater. But that's the toolbox that the good Lord gave you, right? And a lot of people will look at that as a limitation to you succeeding in the sport. But obviously you didn't see it that way. What advice would you have for, a salesperson, a CEO, whoever, who may be dealing with what other people see as limitations? How do they get past those to compete at a high level?
Yeah, I think you have to then find those different tools that, you can be good at. So for instance, maybe some of my counterparts were bigger and stronger than I was. I relied on my technique, and my technique was better than theirs was.
Right.
So, I think you just kind of have to look at the whole picture and what are my strengths? What can I rely on? And build upon those. I'd be in the locker room with some of those East Germans and look at their legs and go, there's no matter how many weights I lift, I'm not going to look like that.
Right.
And so, I could look at that and go, all right, I'm, throw my hands up, I'm done, I'm going to get beat. Or I can take a step back and go, what do I have? What's my strengths? What can I do? And how can I be better than them given what I've got?
Yeah.
There was a Japanese guy, Hiroyasu Shimizu. He was maybe 5'5". He's probably almost 5'4". and from Japan, had been went back and forth having the world record with Jeremy Witherspoon from Canada, who's like 6'3".
Yeah.
And two of them on the starting line you're like, oh my God. And they could come across the finish line at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what you've got and what you do with it that helps to make that difference. And yeah, you can be psyched out by people, but you've got God-given tools that somebody else doesn't have, and vice versa. So you just have to figure out how to fine tune those to take them to your best ability.
So yeah, play to your strengths. Let's speak about barriers, because the world is full of barriers, and especially the sports world. In sports, the most famous one is Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile, and nobody could do it, or you'll just keel over and die, your heart would explode, etc., etc. So the 39 seconds was a barrier in your sport, and you're the first to break that. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it was after the 94 games, and I had actually set a track record in Lillehammer. The Olympic record and the world record was still from Calgary in 1988. This is 1994, that I had set when I beat Krista Rothenberger of 39:10. I believe I went 39:24 maybe in Lillehammer. And so that's kind of like at low land. Calgary's at altitude, which always lends it to be faster. Right. So, I mean, that was a really good time. And so, I knew I was close to the world record there. And there's always a competition. They still have it. I was there with my daughter a couple of weeks ago in Calgary at the end of the season. They call it the oval finale. They try to make the ice as fast as they can. It's designed for athletes to go and set personal bests. And for me, always chasing a clock, that's what it's always all about. I would always also try to keep track of the different tracks that we skated at and what was my fastest time there. Yes, there's always a track record or whatever. I go back to earlier, I've got to beat myself first before I can beat anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's always challenging me and my times. And so knowing what I've done before. So like I said, Lillehammer was great. After Lillehammer, we had a couple other World Cups that we had over in Europe. And then I was going to go to the oval finale. Like, I knew I was so close in Lillehammer to getting that world record. But not only did I want to get the world record, I wanted to break that 39-second barrier. Right. I wanted to see 38 seconds on that clock.
Yeah.
And so go to Calgary. It's probably about a month and a half after the Olympics. Skate the first 500. Now that one becomes my second fastest ever. I think it was like 39:18 or something like that. I didn't quite feel as good on my skates as I wanted to, or as comfortable. Like, they just didn't feel like they were gripping very well. Right. I had one more shot the next day. The gun goes off. My split time was faster than the day before, also faster than what I had done in Lillehammer. So I knew I was on a good race. Right. And come down that home stretch, cross the finish line, and 38.99. Yeah. So just barely, but I got it. And there were probably like 200 athletes in the entire competition, men and women, of all ages. And maybe like 100 parents or whatever. Like, there's nobody in
very few people there, huh?
Yeah, it's not like it was, a World Cup or, the Olympic game. There was like, but, to me, that's not, to me, it was always challenging the clock, challenging myself, and seeing those numbers was magic.
Yeah. And then you get to end a storied career at the very top of the leaderboard. One writer said, you have no more mountains to climb, when you competed in your last event in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, right?
In Milwaukee, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our world champ. So I knew after the Lillehammer Games, the World Sprint Championships was going to be in Milwaukee. Well, this is my hometown. And I knew no matter what, I would not be happy being in the stands watching what is the biggest competition for a sprinter on a non-Olympic year in my hometown. So I knew I was going to skate for one more year. During even the 94 season, I knew I was going to keep, no matter what the results were in Lillehammer. And I think some people look at that and go, well, you're risking not finishing on top. Yeah. But, once again, I was in it for the love of the sport and challenging myself. And, maybe I won't have the results that I had in Lillehammer, but I got to try. Yeah. And because I knew my heart didn't want to be in the stands. My heart would want to be out on that ice. And I skated one more year. Then I wound up winning all 4 races, lowered my own world record that year, not here, but in Calgary a little bit later. So, like I said, in 95 was almost one of my best years that I had skated. And then I left on my own terms. I left when I was ready to go, not because, the Olympics are over, you won, you should be done. I left, I didn't have an injury pushing me out. I left when I felt Bonnie was ready to leave.
Right.
And
was it a sad time for you? Was it sad a lot of times when I speak to, what's that? I missed that.
Yeah, it was a difficult, it wasn't difficult at the time. It was difficult in the fall when I went out for a run and the smell of the wet leaves, that smell I had smelt in Germany for the last 16 years. And I go out for a run and I wasn't thinking anything of it. And I'm just like sobbing, like I shouldn't be here. I should be like in Germany.
Right.
And so it was emotional time because it was like I still wanted it, but I didn't, and I was ready to move on. And I definitely went back and forth. Part of it that made it a little bit easier is then in 96, my husband and I got married, and he actually still skated through almost till 2000. Well, he skated through 2002, didn't make that Olympic team, but he made the 98 games. And part of it, with him still being in it, I was able to gradually go out of it. Right. And I didn't have to quit cold turkey because that was, it's like a drug almost, like it's so in your system that it is kind of hard to, stop. And, I remember being at the Olympics doing an interview in 98 with Harry Smith. And granted, I'm 5 months pregnant at this time. Dave and I had gotten married and I'm pregnant. And like in the middle of the interview, I just started bawling. And, yes, it could have been hormones, but it's like, I'm here and I'm not part of it anymore.
I'm racing, yeah.
It's
tough.
And so it was hard. It's like you kind of go through withdrawals. And, I got back from that run and, I got over it or whatever. But, there were different parts that were emotional for me because it had been such a part of your life. And I'm sure that you felt this too, where it's such a part of your life, and to walk away and be done, that's hard. But
I agree with you. I mean, I went through many years. I often say that my worst Olympics were the Salt Lake Olympics, because I was at the race thinking there's no reason I shouldn't be in this race. And there are people in this race that I used to beat. Why am I not in this race, right? And you go through this slow withdrawal, that takes, many years, a couple of Olympic cycles actually. So it is what it is. But then, when you have a new goal, new direction, it also helps you to move on. And I know.
Right. So I got married, I was pregnant, I had kids, and like I said, don't get me wrong too, because I really did what if myself.
Hmm.
I didn't stop and I didn't make a comeback or whatever. I did keep going. And, a lot of people would have been, after 88, well, you won, you could be done. Well, I still like what I'm doing. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep going. And then we had 92 and then that's when they made the 2-year jump to 94. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
So that, well, why not? Yeah.
so, like I said, even though I had some of those emotional moments, and I would call them more moments, I didn't get stuck in a rut or anything.
Yeah.
I really skated as long as I wanted to and left when I felt comfortable. And
Mhm.
yes, there were times I dearly missed it, but I was still ready to be done.
Yeah.
So, I think it kind of has a little bit of both.
Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
but I definitely, I do know of those athletes that like left and then they want to come back. And if you're thinking that and you're thinking at all about a comeback, don't leave. That's what I would
That's
say.
a good idea. That's
Yeah.
that's good advice there. And so then, what's a message you share as a motivational keynote speaker, Bonnie?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and I've obviously talked a lot about that today, is, really kind of competing within yourself
Hmm.
and setting those personal bests and striving for those. And, yeah, you can get carried away with other people that are around you. And, whether it's in the business world, whether it's kids in school or whatever, but you have to start with you first
Yeah.
and what's good for me. And we talked about my 1500 in Calgary and being fourth, but also in Lillehammer in that 1500 I was fourth, and that one I just missed a bronze medal by like 3/100ths of a second.
Yeah. Hmm.
But once again, that was the fastest in that race I had ever gone. It was an American record. It was the fastest any American had ever gone.
Right.
So, I mean, yes, I was fourth, but I was on top of the world after that race. And,
Mhm.
I would have been higher up there with a bronze, but I had to be proud of what I did.
Yeah.
And so, I think sometimes people have to look at, yes, there's that ultimate pedestal. Um, and I thank God I've been there 5 times, but I know that that's not the norm. That
Hmm.
isn't the norm. So you have to look at, maybe, being 10th, maybe that 8th place, maybe it's top 20. You have to look at things, put things in perspective, what's good for me, and gradually pick away at those things to keep coming up on that ladder and striving for those little personal bests. It's nice to have those long range goals, but the more important goals are the little ones in between that you can, kind of keep checking
Right.
off
Yeah.
and keep taking to that next level to get to that ultimate goal. So, and I think too, with all that, and I've kind of talked about this here today too, those people that you surround yourself with, those are the ones that can help make that success possible. And
Hmm.
like I said, success doesn't always mean first. Success is, on a given range of what's good for you, but surrounding those people that help you get there. I
Yeah.
always say it's like that tire wheel that has all the spokes in it, and when all the spokes are there, it spins in a perfect fashion,
Yeah.
and that gives you that recipe to be able to have the success.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then my last little bit is I like to talk about risk. And I think, sometimes people are willing to risk or go out on a limb to be better. And so you have to find out what those risks are to make sure you're challenging yourself,
Hmm.
that you're getting ready to, you just don't want it to be, all on one level. You've got to keep, find those things you need to do and then challenge yourself to push you a little bit further.
Absolutely. And so now, with all those accomplishments, all those accolades, you mentioned it, the hats you love to wear the best are that have wife and mom. And I know, I forgot your son's name. He plays hockey.
Grant. Yeah,
Grant,
Grant's playing
Grant,
hockey. Yeah.
right. And Blair just competed in the U.S. trials as well.
Yeah, and so start with Blair. She
Yeah.
kind of grew up as a gymnast, and won the state championships at level 8, and kind of thought she was going to go on a path to go to college and do gymnastics, but
Mhm.
her wrists weren't going to let her do that. So
Right.
she had to give that up at the age of like around 13. And after that decided, and she had played soccer all along, and she, why I was over in Sochi with you, I got a video of her and she's speed skating, and I'm like, she doesn't even have speed skates. I knew she had some hockey skates that every once
Right.
in a while she'd get on, but she's like, okay, I had to figure out something to do in the wintertime. I think I'm going to do the speed skating thing. So it's really been about 5 years. When she first started, she couldn't do a crossover stroke.
Yeah.
Didn't really know how to do that. So she's come a really long way in a short amount of time. She's made our last 2 junior world teams.
It's that Blair competition in her blood, Bonnie.
She's got that. She got the Blair competition. Yeah, she has 1 more year left of juniors,
Mhm.
and she is on the path of the potential of making an Olympic team. And if it's not this next Olympics, it'll be the next one. But once again, that comes from her. She has to still love it and want to
Mhm.
do it. She had a very successful senior high school year of soccer. And, and I said to her, I'm like, are you sure you don't want to like maybe go to school? And she wouldn't have been able to go D1, but she would have been able to go D3 for soccer.
Right.
And she's like, no, I want to speed skate. And inside of me, I'm like, yes. And so this last year we were in Germany and in Italy and seeing rinks that my husband and I used to skate at, and
Right.
Which has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to those next few years. And as long as she still wants to do it, like I said, it has to come from her.
Yeah,
As
agreed.
long as she's in it, we're in it for the ride too. And, she's kind of taken a little hiatus from college, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And then our son Grant plays hockey. He's playing out of Colorado Springs at Colorado College. That's D1 for hockey. They only have 2 D1 sports there, that and girls soccer.
Right.
I had a nephew that went there, and I've got part of my family relatives live in the area.
Mhm.
So it makes it really nice that he's got family surrounding him. And we, went to quite a few games, and then if not, then we get to watch him on the computer
Right.
when we're not around. So he, as a freshman this last year, even though he's going to be 21, hockey's a little different than other collegiate sports. You typically go and play junior hockey. So
Mhm.
after high school, he did that. He went up to Canada and played 2 years up there. And now he just finished his freshman year.
Mhm.
As a freshman, had a lot of ice time, playing penalty kill, power play, and was a regular in the lineup. So it was like, it was a fun being a parent this year.
Yeah.
My kid, like I said, my kids are thriving, and I'm enjoying the ride. I'm along for the ride. Just take me wherever we want to go.
Uh, I tell you, yeah, Bonnie, it has been a blur, but a wonderful blur spending time with you this morning. It's great to see you again. Thank you for sharing your experiences and the gems, the pearls that you have gleaned from them that we can apply to our lives as well. You definitely embody this idea of keep on pushing, working to be your best, competing against yourself, defining success on your own terms, and being willing to risk in order to continue to grow and to excel. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for gracing us with your presence.
Sure thing, Devin. Nice to see you too.
Yeah, man. Keep on pushing, Bonnie.
Okay, thank you.